All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Claudia Gonson. All right, now Claudia's very sick, but she's making a valiant effort.
Does anybody remember the last time that I was in Boston and how I had no voice? Seems to be a recurring theme.
All right, so if you have a question, raise a hand and don't be shy.
Good, I'm fine now.
Right here.
Can I ask two very short questions?
Yeah.
Has Steven done any movie music since moving? Film music?
That's the second question.
69?
No, thank you. Do you guys know who Chris is? Like, what am I saying? I'm in Cambridge. Of course, you all know who Chris is. So did Steven make any film scores since he's been to LA? I don't think. The two that I know that we all know he did before he went to LA, which was, sorry about my voice, Pieces of April, which is what he did, it's a film with Katie Holmes. It's actually a really nice independent film. And then a littler film called Ewen and Charlie. I'm sorry about my voice. Has he done film? He's actually right now trying to develop just a score for a documentary. That'll take a while. Trying to think, has he done it or? How embarrassing. He's done ads and he's pitched some big film stuff that we didn't get.
You doing any music on your own without Steven at this point?
I did for a little while, a couple of years ago. I had a little band with Rick Moody, the writer, and a couple other people, Shelley, who was going to be here tonight. We're sort of like an Agatha Christie mystery. We just keep knocking out one by one. But she couldn't come because she has a family illness. And then, we just kind of didn't get really a lot of steam. But yeah, I had a few little projects. Nothing right now.
You two are the ones that probably know Steven best. Do you think that he was portrayed truthfully through this film, or do you think he kind of shied away?
I'm sorry, do we think he was portrayed truthfully or?
Yeah, or do you think he shied away or kind of put on a different, full canvas?
Well, I think that because the film was shot over many years, it's a pretty. The film of him is him acting the way he acts, I would say. I don't think he really shied away from revealing anything, but just the situations that he were filmed in, that's the way he would normally act. So I think it's honest in what was there.
I think that's a good answer. I think that Steven actually reveals more in this movie than I thought he would. When he talks about issues of feeling discriminated against, or things that have happened to him that hurt him emotionally. I was like, whoa, he's talking about this on camera. So he's not the most forward guy, and I think Chris and I have known him since the '80s, and I also feel like that's pretty much what it's like to talk to Steven. He's very slow talking, really takes his time, and he's succinct. Like if you say, how did that make you feel? And he felt bad, he'll say something like, not so great. And that's sort of what you get from him. You don't get gushy emotions. That's my job.
What would it take for you to listen and potentially produce me and my brother's music?
Well, I have never produced a record in my life, except something I did when I was in high school, so I wouldn't ask me that question. Chris is an incredible producer, and you can always email him.
Yes, after we do the new Future Bible Heroes album, I will talk about producing things.
Yeah, Chris is a really amazing producer. Steven gets asked that question a lot, and we would be happy to listen to whatever, but pretty selective. In fact, he's never actually produced anything except for his own music. We got really close last year with the band, and actually the funding fell apart, and it didn't happen. This seems to be the story of everything I'm talking about tonight.
Susan Enway, the singer from the first two albums, has there been any contact with her since she left or something? I noticed she wasn't in the documentary.
Yeah, we actually asked her. She moved to Arizona in the early '90s, pretty much right after we finished our albums. The question was about the woman who sang the first two albums.
Actually, I think that she was living in Arizona beforehand,
right.
And
well,
she was in a band called V,
right.
And she had moved to Arizona, and Stephen wanted her to sing the first couple albums. So we actually brought her back to Boston.
It was in the middle. Like the first record she was here, and then she moved, and then we moved.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is that she moved a really long time ago to Arizona, and she sort of dropped out of sight and became she had worked a lot in folk music and did all these things. And then I guess Gail found her very recently and asked her to do some work for Time Out. And so we've had a casual kind of relationship with her. And they asked her that she's off in Arizona. She hasn't had anything to do with the band in an embarrassing amount of time. I think she just didn't feel it was something she could comment on. Sorry, I was whispering. But yes.
Have more tea.
Yeah.
His lyrics are so personal, but I'm wondering, they feel personal, but is any of it actually autobiographical?
That was the question he was asked absolutely every single time he was interviewed for 69 Love Songs. We call it the sincerity question. Did you mean what you wrote? Did it really happen? Do you have feelings? What's wrong with you? And it's not a question that I think is easily answered by anyone. I think that when you are an artist, you weave. I mean, Chris can probably speak to this even better than I can, but I think you weave your personal experience and your fictional experience. And I thought Corinthian Gale tried to sort of articulate that a little bit. That he's watching movies, he's reading books, he's having personal experiences, and it's all kind of.
He's writing songs from different characters' points of view,
right.
And I think that Stephen is very much a musicologist in the sense that he studies the form of music, and so when he writes, say, 69 different kinds of love songs, I think he's more interested in the form of this particular love song or that one, as opposed to saying, oh, I had my heart broken last week, so I'm going to write a reggae song or something like that. He's very much interested in discovering the subtleties of certain forms of music and exploring them.
But I also think that the reason that this question gets asked eternally over and over is that conflict you feel when you listen to this music and you feel so emotionally brought out by it, and then you think, folk singers have feelings, and songs about love should be sincere, and so there's this kind of conflict of how can I be listening to this and not knowing where the author is. And I just think that that's it's just easier if you can kind of put it more in the place of a composer. Nobody really is sitting, I don't know, Steven Sondheim down and saying, did you really feel that when you wrote that? I think that he is more in that stance than I don't know, name a folk singer of today, like a Sufjan, or somebody who's really more emotionally present in his songs. But I always felt, just to my own personal opinion is that when he writes, like in the song "Take Ecstasy with You," when he writes, "We got beat up just for holding hands," I think there's a personal feeling about being gay in that song, and I think there are throughout his
they're
songs.
Sincere, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think he writes songs from a completely insincere perspective at all.
I think there's personal stuff in there, definitely, but I think it would be somewhat of I don't think it would be a good thing to try to parse out where the one line begins and the other one ends. Actually, it would do a disservice in a way to the art, to me.
So we never got a wife when we stabbed her death?
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah. Maybe yes and maybe no at the same time. Exactly. great question. Well, part of it was denial. I mean, you know, they made it over so many years that none of us actually thought it would happen. So we're like, ah, sure, whatever, film us. And also, Gail is a major player in this. Gail was one of Stephen's closest friends at the time that she started making the film. They really spent a lot of time together, and you know, it was just more natural to have her than someone we didn't know. And then when she sort of brought in Kirky, who was a more experienced filmmaker, it didn't feel as scary. It would have been, I think it would never have happened if Kirky come to us cold call and, you know, hi, I'm a filmmaker, I want to make your film. We would have said no. So I think there was a natural progression, and it led to a more comfortable experience. But there was trust issues the whole time, you know. I mean, kind of, how do we feel? How do we feel? You know, we asked for a lot of rights to see various incarnations of this film, give our feedback. It was a very kind of discussed experience.